Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at week two of From Classroom to Boardroom, a virtual event series addressing issues of race and equity in the workplace and communities across the country. We are excited for today's session. What can a small business do to promote diversity? Presented in partnership with Green Herlocker. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator, Eric Herlocker, the managing member at Green Herlocker. Eric, I'll turn things over to you.
Thanks, Miles, and thank you, Tom, for being a great partner with us, not only this year but in past years. And we look forward to when we can all get back together in Charlottesville and listen to music and have a beer after these kind of sessions. It will be great to do that again. I'm very fortunate to be joined by Michelle Heck, who is the Associate Dean of Admissions at University of Richmond, T.C. Williams School of Law at University of Richmond. And I'll give Michelle just a minute here to give a quick introduction for her and a little bit of her background. And then we can go into what effectively, is a case study, or at least one of the things that we have done as a small business and as a professional organization to try to support and overcome some longstanding equality and equity type issues that we see in the areas that our firm practices. So Michelle, maybe you can give a brief introduction of what you do at the law school, and then I can talk a minute or two about what we did, and then we can kind of go and get your thoughts in terms of what we did is going to play out in how we hope it plays out in reality. So turn it over to you.
Sure, sounds great. So I'm Michelle Heck. I am the Dean of Admissions at the University of Richmond. I oversee all things admissions, pipelines, scholarships, all of that. So from sometimes the letters we get from a fifth grader interested in law school to those getting ready to start next year, we see a little bit of everything. I've been at the University of Richmond since January of 2019. I was at another law school prior where I started in 2006 and actually worked for a test prep company for 3 years prior to that. So I've seen a lot of changes in the legal education and law school admissions world over the last 17 years.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So just by way of background, earlier this year, my partners, Brian Green and Jared Burton, and Jared is in our Harrisonburg office. Brian and I are in Richmond. We had seemed like, knock on wood, had weathered a lot of the COVID storm and wanted to really think about how we could give back and give back in a meaningful way. One of the areas, and we practice a fair amount in front of the State Corporation Commission here in Virginia, as well as other utility commissions in the Mid-Atlantic. And one of the things that we have noticed, over the past 20 or 25 years of practice, sadly coming on 30 for me, is that there really is a lack of diversity of folks that are practicing in this energy area, the renewable energy area, the utilities arena, at least in the areas that we practice in Richmond and Baltimore and others. And so began to ask ourselves, why is that, and what can we do to try to overcome that and try to get more folks introduced to this subject matter and into this practice. So we talked to, we called kind of cold called the dean and said, look, can we fund a scholarship? What we would like to do is fund one with, a scholarship with the goal of working with students that are coming from diverse, maybe some disadvantaged backgrounds, some minority candidates, and try to get help them with law school, which is not a insignificant endeavor, and also then introduce them over the course of their law school experience to our type of practice, an administrative practice, an energy-based and environmental-based practice so that they may, it may spark some interest in an area that they might ordinarily, would just either not be aware of or ignore as part of their law school experience. And so we worked with the school. The school has been great in terms of flexibility and really helping us. And we got to the point that we funded the scholarship this year. And so that's kind of the what we did. And the other reason is why we did it and why we did it now. It really, the whole COVID thing really hit home for us, seeing how folks were affected by it, and also seeing areas that weren't as affected by it, and how to kind of build on those. So that's really the whys and the why nows, and what we wanted to kind of spend this time talking about, and we would encourage y'all, the chat function is up and running, and so if you have certain questions that you want to type in, or if there are things that you want to talk to us about afterwards, feel free to, my information's on our website, and you can hunt us up or any of my partners. But wanted to kind of talk to Michelle about and get the law school's perspective of this as our partner. What we see is kind of three real stages to this, and maybe we'll take them one at a time. But just as an overview, the first stage is, how does something like this that we have done help recruit students to U of R law school, or to kind of law school in general, but specifically in our case to U of R. How do we work with the school on an ongoing basis once students are there and once a scholarship recipient is there to affect their experience at the school, make it as positive and as broad based as we can. And then the kind of the third and inevitable piece is, what is the law school's role, and what can law firms like mine do in terms of helping those students, in fact, get jobs at the end of the day, which is, meaningful for the law school, meaningful for folks like me, and certainly the students. So those are kind of the life cycle that my partners and I have kind of envisioned here. And so wanted to, kind of ask Michelle and get her thoughts and, on, each of these. So, I'll kind of open it up, Michelle, in the area of one, the recruiting, what is U of R doing, in terms of recruiting and, the type of students that this scholarship, is intended really to reach?
Sure. So I want to just kind of first talk about law school admissions in general. And one of the things that sometimes individuals don't realize is we have a large net that we cast every year to try and recruit the best students. When a student is interested in going to med school, they're going to be biology, chemistry, several different majors along those lines. But when a student's interested in going to law school, we may see anywhere from 40 to 60 different majors every year. They could be political science and history. They could be music performance. They also may have been out of school for 10 or 15 years, or they may be coming fresh out of undergrad. So every year we kind of have to step back and look, okay, what is our marketing and what is our communications plan going to look like? And how are we going to try and reach these students? There are some studies out there that show that some individuals actually make the decision to go to law school by middle school. That they are actually, especially some of our minority individuals, start deciding in middle school if law school is where they want to go. Well, we don't always have the resources sometimes to stretch that far. We do a lot of pipeline programs, but there's several different layers to admissions. Some of it is going to be more on the actual attending law fairs around the country each year. Undergraduate institutions, sometimes different communities, a variety of different places will host actual law fairs. The makers of the LSAT exam, which we may talk about in a little bit, that every law student takes for law school, actually hold some national events around the country. Most of the time, all of these events are going to be free for a student to attend, and a student truly interested in law school can see, anywhere from 20 to some of the national events, 180 different law schools in one setting. while still being able to sit in on some informational sessions and look and figure out what exactly is this law school process. You decide you want to go to law school, but there's so many layers to kind of get you to the point. So a lot of the things that we do at Richmond, some of it is going to be these events. We try and attend as many of these events as possible, especially the national ones. But part of it is the outreach before we ever get to these events, trying to make contact with student organizations or different clubs, pre-law clubs, just different, maybe history clubs or mock trial teams or those kind of things, getting in contact with pre-law advisors or just sometimes different individuals in the community to just even get the word out there that these things are happening. So that way we can get people to attend these events. Other things kind of that we do is we send a ton of different emails. Once a student tells us that they're interested in law school, any student, we can add them to our email campaign list, which then provides a wealth of opportunities. COVID, one of the positive things to come out of COVID is we have been able to host a variety of virtual sessions. In the fall, we had a different session every day. Sometimes it's about financing law school. Sometimes it's about writing the personal statement. Sometimes it's about just the application process or studying for the exam. And what we find with a lot of minority, diverse groups and that sort of thing, especially first generation students, they just don't have the knowledge of how this whole process works. So a huge part of our marketing and stuff each year is just trying to get the word out there to get students to some of these events so that we can help better educate them and they can have the resources and stuff they need. Sometimes it may be, lots of email writing and 5-minute conversations. Sometimes it may be standing at a table for 8 hours so we can answer those questions. And then more layers we get into is when we actually will do some pipeline events and programming. In non-COVID times when we can all gather in the same place, we try and bring a lot of students to campus where it may be a real class that they get in to sit in on or talking to students so they can actually visualize themselves in these situations. Sometimes the groups we bring in, again, may be middle schoolers, sometimes they may be high schoolers, sometimes they may be students that really want to start the next year. It's just a multi-layer process that each year we are trying to adapt to the incoming student and hit as many things as possible.
Great. A couple follow-ups on that. So has U of R specifically, as part of this, their outreach, is U of R specifically doing events or has kind of crafted or otherwise pulled together specifically for some of the historically Black colleges and universities, a lot of which are, geography wise, are in the areas that U of R, kind of the mid-Atlantic, South, Northeast, that U of R traditionally, has recruited both undergrad students as well as, graduate level students.
Sure. So we do a variety of those. Some of those are going to be individual outreach, like the VUU in town. We try and reach out and attend as many things as we can. So if it means that a professor wants us to come speak in a classroom, or if it means that we are meeting with their entire, student group, or we're bringing them to campus. Pre-COVID, that happened a lot more in person and stuff than what is now, where we're doing a lot more of virtual talks. We try and attend as many of the schools in the area, even if there are not specific law fairs, but just schedule, like, can we come and do some sort of talk for a variety of different, people. Again, maybe it's a specific classroom where we think we may reach people interested in law school, or maybe it's a specific student group. On top of that, we try and partner with some organizations. CLEO, which is the Council of Legal Education Opportunity, is another organization that we've done a lot of pipelining programs with. They're a national organization, but work with law schools. So one Saturday in March, we had anywhere from students thinking 4 years out before law school to students thinking next year, where we conducted an online mock LSAT exam, did mock classes, did a lot of educational sessions to just kind of walk them through that process to better equip them. The law school process, when a student applies, you're really a full year out. So the sooner we can reach those. We have a lot of plans to try and continue to increase that pipeline programming. Some of those may be that we get into, again, some of the high schools where where, and this is where sometimes businesses can get involved, because a lot of times we look for volunteers, but even in your own community, sometimes there's needs to go in to just show individuals what their career paths could be. A lot of times the students that we see that are interested in law have been affected by it in some way. That maybe their parents were divorced or they had some run-in with the law at some point in life, but the rest of the population sometimes doesn't even realize some of the things an attorney can do, which I think is what affects you guys some in the area that you practice. They haven't always been affected. So a lot of it is truly trying to find any avenue that we can to do more outreach and, groups that we can partner with to try and bring people to the table so that we can start getting them in the pipeline and educating them on the process.
Great. And you touched on kind of my next question a little bit is over the, particularly during the COVID, we saw, and maybe even beforehand, I think it kind of anecdotally, I saw colleges and undergraduate programs, saying SATs optional. And then in this past year or two, I think a lot more have jumped on that, whether that's going to be a permanent thing or a temporary thing. I have no idea, but I was curious whether, the LSATs were such a major part of the admission kind of criteria, at least, sadly, 30 years ago, when I was applying. Is that still the case, or are there kind of movements similar to what we see with the ACTs or SATs?
It's always the discussion about the LSAT, but most of the time is not to get rid of completely, but is there another piece out there? So the LSAT during COVID had to go through some changes, because before COVID, it was an in-person test. It had switched to a tablet exam, but you actually had to go to a testing facility. It has now switched to an online test that you actually take at home, but again, only certain times of the year. And there is an online proctor that's going to kind of see students and stuff through the experience. There's no real intention right now that it's going anywhere. One of the things about the LSAT exam that's a little bit different than, say, the SAT, ACT, is it's a test designed to get you thinking in a critical, logical mindset, which is what law school does. And so although the LSAT is not an indicator necessarily on how you're going to do on the bar exam, it can be an indicator on what your first year performance is going to be like. As well as when we as a law school are admitting individuals, the two big mathematical things that we can compare all students are cumulative GPAs from their undergrad and the LSAT exam. It gives us an idea of, not just, how well do they take standardized tests, but can they start absorbing their brain in that way to kind of think on the logic mindset? It is a test that can be a hurdle for a lot of individuals, just academically and studying, but also kind of trying to find the resources. So that's something else, as I mentioned, with our CLEO program we had done, but there's a lot more partnerships out there to kind of help students that are starting to think. One of the big resources that we utilize these days is what is known as the Khan Academy. Some individuals know the Khan Academy to help them learn science and math, and I think the Khan Academy teaches everything these days. But LSAC, the makers of the LSAT, have partnered with them. And so there is a free LSAT test prep and stuff through them. It's something that each student is different when it comes to the LSAT, but it is such a vital part, not only for law school admissions, but the bulk of scholarships at all law school are more merit-based on LSAT and GPA. That's an area where, scholarships and stuff such as yours, that we can get into more of the students and stuff that may see the need-based a little bit more, that are not so much on the merit-based. Because a huge hurdle and stuff for many students, even once they decide they want to go to law school, the thinking about what the debt load's going to look like and what that job's going to be on the other side to be able to pay off those student loans later on.
Exactly, and that's one of, that's one of the things that we're trying to address, both at least in some small fashion, the debt load, and then ideally the end of the road, kind of out of law school into work. So kind of a transition, and I appreciate that your kind of focus is in the admissions area, but kind of once students get to U of R, particularly students that have come from that are may have been first generation college, and certainly first generation law school students. What is U of R, or are there special programs that U of R has developed to kind of help all the students welcome them, feel welcomed at the school, continue to support them, recognizing backgrounds and so forth, to make their experience as good as possible, at the law school.
Sure. So a variety of different things. One of the things that we see with students coming into law school is sometimes they feel that they're the only person that's ever, had their experiences. And although that may be true, there may be other students that have similar experiences. We have a set of about 40 student ambassadors that are current students, first, second, and third years, that we use a lot in the admissions process. Because although they may not have exact experiences, a first generation student is going to have similar experiences as another first generation student. So we actually even start before students are admitted in hosting different sessions. It may be a diversity panel of alums that work in a variety of different areas so that students can see what some of the options and stuff are. Well, it may be a student panel of different student organizations like our Black Law Student Association, our First Generation Law Student Association, our Non-Traditional Student Law Student Association, just to give students to ask some of those questions, or sometimes just get the prospective or admitted students thinking about things that they hadn't thought of before in the entire process. So we really try and pair those students up. A mentorship is another big thing that plays a huge part in law school. We start after students are admitted. We joke, we ask them about 5 zillion times what type of law they're interested in, not because they have to know that before they come to law school, but if they even have an inclination, they're going to get a faculty mentor that practices or that teaches them stuff in that area. So during their first year, when their classes are all set and they get no choices, they can start learning about different types of law. They can start going to certain sessions or being involved in certain student organizations and kind of pick that up in the process. We have U of R of try and surround each incoming student with a team of individuals. We say we do a lot of things well. Mind reading is not one of them, but they are going to be surrounded by, everything from they will have a faculty mentor. They will have a student mentor that's a second and third year student. They have a section leader that is a student that oversees their entire section if they have questions. They're going to have their career development mentor. They may have an alumni mentor, as well as just their current faculty and stuff that they may have in classes. We then also end up with our academic success professor, our bar prep professor, our externship professor, our innovation professor, our professional identity formation professor. So there is just a team of individuals to kind of help walk them through this process, but also expose them to more things. Because again, a lot of times students, when they enter, either have that experience, they had a run-in with the law or, family or divorce or something like that, or they think practicing law is like Law and Order, which may not necessarily be the case where you have more than one case at a time, sort of thing.
So, one of the hopes with our, and one of the things that we worked hard with the dean's office when we set up the scholarship was our kind of ability to continue to, work with the scholarship recipients, but not, exclusively with that. What can, during the 3 years at U of R, what role should and what kind of outreach are y'all doing with the local law firms, of which Richmond is blessed, with a variety of, large firms, small firms, medium-sized firms, solo practitioners. What can the law firms and practicing lawyers, both alumni at the school and others, be doing to touch get in touch with students, introduce them to areas of law? To your point, I've never been in court. I never want to ever go to court. And that's just not something I'm interested in or was ever interested in. What can we be doing, while they're there, to supplement the types of mentorship programs that you mentioned?
Absolutely. So one of the big things that we always encourage is our career development office works with, all of those groups. So we always want to make sure people are on the list, as we say, because even during their very first week, during orientation week, for the first week of school starts, we do a full day of career immersion where, again, career development is going to bring in a variety of different speakers, a variety of different things from, etiquette at lunch to, these are just different types of law and stuff to practice. But this is when everything that during the 3 years that happens, career development kind of is getting them ready for that endpoint. And so sometimes it's like a speed networking event. They may ask a ton of different alums to come in person. That's, again, one of the doors that COVID has opened, is we've been able to reach different individuals all over the country, that they don't necessarily have to be in the building and stuff.
Right.
Sometimes it's a matter they're just looking for guest speakers. Other times it may be that they have students that want to work. So some are internships, some are externships, jobs and stuff when they graduate. Career development really fosters all of that. They do everything from close-up lunches where they'll have small group lunches and stuff with different alums. Again, the networking reception that they do a mock interviewing. And so they are always looking for more volunteers. What we find happens a lot of times, and you all understand this as smaller businesses and sometimes sole practitioners, is you just get busy. And so because you're the sole practitioner. And so that's where we need to try and find sometimes what is the best niche for you? Is it, hey, I can't do all of these other things, but I can devote an hour to do some mock interviewing and stuff with students. So the big thing is just getting individuals on the list so that our career development office can outreach, but also not to be bashful to contact them and just say, hey, I all of a sudden have found that I have this extra time, or, I would love to be able to talk to some students, and they will gladly schedule things. One of the things that we try really hard is finding the balance for students, especially first year, first semester, because they're so focused on the academic as they should be, making sure that we space out all of these events, but really exposing to students what some of the options are, because like you said, you may never want to be in a courtroom and know that, or you may take that trial class and realize you never want to be in the courtroom.
Right. Yeah, that was it. For sure. So I know we're, kind of coming on the end of our time here, but I guess we've kind of talked about the third stage here, which is, helping these, the students, and particularly the students from diverse backgrounds that we're really focused on with our program. How do we measure the success of this? And maybe that's to be developed. I mean, this is, at least for us, this is brand new. The success for me would be, 3 years down the road, I've got, a new associate who I know has been trained and has a good background and is ready to go, but has also experienced, has gotten some introduction to us. I mean, do y'all, just in general, folks that you've provided scholarship assistance to, is there a tracking, or how do y'all kind of, keep touch with folks, that to kind of see, was this a good return on investment? Really, I know what are these students doing? Have we put them in a position to really succeed by giving this financial help? I mean, what are, how would we measure this program's success?
Well, and I think that's something that's going to be ever changing. And I do think that it's something that can change over time. I mean, in an ideal world, the student would go on to succeed, find a job, practicing in the area, give back to the law school, to others and stuff with graduation. I think that's true success. But I think sometimes we forget what I call maybe smaller levels of success. Maybe it's the fact that they did a summer internship and realized that either wasn't a good fit for them, or they did realize it was good. And in that student's mind, that was also success because it helped them through that process. But what we also find sometimes is students are very, when they're in law school, they're with 150 roughly other people, and, they really get to know their classmates. So sometimes it's a matter of like, hey, that wasn't a good fit for me, but you should really try this area. Like, I think that it would be a good area. So sometimes there's successes we don't even realize until much farther down the road, that we find, a student went to go practice in this area, and we're, how did you end up here? And they're like, well, another student had this summer externship and they thought I might be good at it and stuff. So I think there's different levels of success. I mean, our goal is always to get all of our students, through law school, and not just through law school, but to have a great educational experience all the way around. It is not just about learning, but as I always tell students, we live in a very challenging world sometimes, politically, diversity, all of those things. If you can't have those difficult conversations in law school and learn from your peers, and that's why it's so important to us to bring in a diverse background of age and gender and ethnicity and just their life experiences, because if you can't learn that stuff in law school and have those difficult conversations, how are you ever going to be able to practice in the real world? Because you're going to face a lot of people that do not agree with you. Right. And so that's one of the things, as far as even judging success, is just looking back and seeing, hey, what went well? What can we talk with some of these students that they wish that we did different? It's a big thing that we do, I think, in admissions and career development with our students all the time. As the students constantly changing, we have to self-reflect and realize, like, are there minor tweaks that we can make? Have we learned from this? And, what do some of the students that are currently in this situation suggest that we do differently? So I think there will be some longer term successes when we get these students through, and hopefully they're not in debt as much and they can give back or even do more pro bono work in their area. Those are also big areas and stuff of success.
Gotcha. Well, I know we've come to the end of our time, and I did notice the question from Mr. Weber, and it's a fair question in terms of what is the it is this is not a one a once in time kind of issue. It is an ongoing kind of I view it as a commitment. And so, from I'll just give, just real briefly here, from our firm's perspective, we have taken, a very significant, and kind of measured decisions on what started as, kind of two white guys starting a law firm. We've over the course of our time, we were at 10 lawyers now, or we will be on Monday. I think half of which, or almost half of which, are now women. We'll starting on Monday, an African American attorney. So we are working on it. We are far from perfect, and we have a long way to go. But we recognize both at our own, in our own firm, in our practice area here in Richmond, that there is a long way to go. And these are, both the steps we've taken at U of R to try to bring more diverse students into the law school, expose them to our areas of practice, and then incumbent on us, on our end of that law school experience to bring folks into the profession. And so we have, like I said, we have tried to diversify ourselves. We continue to diversify our firm. We're not where we want to be, but we're taking, I think we're trying to take the steps, to try to get there. And so maybe I'll turn it back over to Miles at this point, and maybe that's a good kind of segue to the next stages of the Tom Tom Festival here over the course of the next week. So thank you very much, and everyone, for attending. Michelle, thank you for putting up with us, and Miles, I'll flip it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Michelle. What a fantastic conversation. I think it just really provides some insight into what can be done at every level to promote diversity and equity in the workplace and the current structures. Just want to take a moment to thank Green Herlocker once again, and the University of Richmond for participating in these discussions. Your support has made it possible to bring these high-level conversations to our network, and these are the conversations and discussions we need to be having. For everyone else out there, thank you for tuning in. We have another session starting at 1 p.m. So feel free to head over to the agenda section of the Tom Tom Foundation website, and you can find that link there. And we thank you for your time. So with that, everyone have a good day, and we'll talk with you soon.
Great. Thanks, everyone.